Hi and welcome to your first class in the Global Community Retreat with me here on the mat, your first class with me this week, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the live sessions and I can really get a sense of how your bodies are moving. So today, with the very nature of a recorded session, I ask you to please take responsibility for your body, take a rest when you need to, have some props to hand, so cushions, pillows, a belt or a dressing gown belt, just in case you might feel you need them through the class. So also, if I don't prompt a rest, please take a rest if you feel that you need to. So the theme for today's class, and for the whole of the day actually, is active kindness, as Rachel will have introduced you to this morning. So as you're working through the practice today, in addition to the movements that we're making and how we're exploring our bodies, see if you can pay attention to this principle of active kindness, how we're approaching ourselves and our bodies, anything that might come up, any habitual patterns of moving, any stories that we have about our bodies, any particular mantras that might come up like, oh yes, I know I have a bad shoulder, I know I have a bad hip, and whatever we've got going on in our bodies, whether there's injuries or aches and pains or tensions here and there, just see if you can cultivate a quality of active kindness around those and maybe be prepared to be surprised by your body. See if you can come to a neutral place where we're simply exploring what's possible and we're exploring these movements as if we've never really done them before. So that also breaks the cycle of just going through the practice habitually and thinking that we know it. Can we be prepared to be surprised every time we bring ourselves to the mat? So the way that I work and the way that I teach might be a bit different to some of you here with us on this retreat to how you've worked with yoga and worked with the body before. I know there are some people in the group who are very familiar with these principles. So if this is new to you and it may be a bit challenging because it's very different to how you've worked before, then ask you to just kind of explore, go with it, see what happens. And the principles that I'm going to be sharing with you of working with a very strong sense of grounding, working with the breath, paying attention to the spine in everything that we do, possibly can come with you through the week, through all of the movement classes that you do, and even into your day-to-day life, and through functional movements of how we're moving through each day. It's not limited to just being on the mat. So it's a very somatic way of working. That means that we're feeling what's going on. We're not just doing the movements, we're really feeling the effects of them in the body and bringing our attention to those details time and time again. Okay, so that's enough introduction from me. Let's get down onto the mat and start exploring. So I'm going to invite you to come and lay down in the semi-supine position. So that is laying with your back to the ground and your knees bent and your feet flat to the floor. And finding a place here, finding the positioning for the feet that's not too far away from you, it's not too close to the pelvis, it's not too wide, and it's not too narrow. There's a sweet spot that doesn't really require too much effort from the muscles of the legs to sustain the position. If you find the position uncomfortable for now, or you feel like you can't relax in it just yet, because sometimes that takes time, you can always take the feet a bit wider and let the knees fall in together. You might find that a little bit more comfortable to start with. Otherwise, if you're happy with the knees bent and the feet flat to the floor, settling into that position. And you can close your eyes and let your eyes really fall back into the head. So you're dropping the attention away from the front of the face and down towards the back of the body. Noticing how the back of the head rests on the ground. And starting to draw attention to all of the points of contact between your body and the earth. So throughout the practice this morning, I'm going to invite you time and time again to continually keep noticing how your contact to the ground is changing. Because as we work through the body and through different movements, as space opens up, that contact changes. And your body loves to meet the earth. There's something incredibly special about this meeting between our bodies and the ground. And as you let your weight settle moment by moment, you become more engaged with the floor underneath you. More aware of the weight of the body. More trusting of the support of the ground. Trusting that you can be held. And throughout this practice, try to avoid looking at the screen as much as possible. Obviously, you're going to need to here and there. But mostly I'm going to be guiding you into yourself and into your own felt experience. So just keep listening, keep watching to what's happening for you inside. And in this position you can have your elbows resting on the floor and the palms of your hands just resting gently on your belly. And begin to notice the rise and fall of the breath in the belly. So on the inhalation, the belly expands and widens and fills, and on the exhalation it softens and draws back towards the ground. Gently breathing in and out through the nose. And if you don't naturally feel the breath low down in the belly underneath your hands, just encourage it to come into this place. For the belly to fill, to widen, to expand. And then to soften and drop back towards the spine and towards the floor. And you're trying not to do your breathing. More cultivating this quality of the observer, the witness. So with a very light quality of attention, no effort in the breath. Even if you have to encourage the breath into the belly, be gentle. And then at some point, you're just going to explore reaching your arms above your head to lay them on the ground behind you, so just above shoulder height, or to a point where you can still keep your arms fully engaged with the ground, so the weight is fully on the floor, the arms are not pulling off the floor, they're resting on the floor very clearly. And as you come back to the thread of your breathing, to the rhythm of your breath, the natural breath, can just explore tiny little movements here of the head side to side. They're tiny. Relaxing your jaw. Exploring the shape of the base of your skull. And allowing the ground to take the weight of your arms. Still very connected to the movement of the breath in your belly. As the head makes these tiny little movements from side to side, and notice everything that you're noticing. All the sensations, any thoughts or feelings or distractions that arise. Letting go of the stories, letting go of the expectations, just being present with what is. Good, and then the head can settle. And you can open your eyes now, but just to have a very soft gaze and to let the light in, to change the perspective so we don't become too spaced out. You can peel your arms off the ground and cross them over the chest in front of you. So your elbows are like in the centre line of the body, and your hands can just drop down by the sides of your shoulders. Breath in the belly, but also now the breath moving into the area of the shoulder blades, expanding the upper back, filling the upper back with the in-breath, and softening the upper spine with the out-breath. And then changing the cross of the arms. Again, allowing the in-breath to fill the belly, but also come right up into the back of the body, to the lungs, much more in the back of the body and the sides of the body than they are in the front, filling the upper back, widening across the upper back, and then softening with the exhalation. Undoing the arms, so they come to be above you in the space, above your head, above your body. So you can make little circles with your wrists in one direction, circles with your wrists in the other direction, moving all of the fingers, and then just moving into the shoulders. So this kind of undulatory movement through the arm, through the elbow joint, through the wrists and into the hands, which you can feel all the way up into the neck. Good. And then laying the arms back down by the side of you, hands on the belly. So as you're laying here, experiencing the weight of your body being held and supported by the earth, you can become aware of the breath, once again in the belly, the rise and the fall of the abdomen, and particularly that moment on the exhalation where the belly falls back towards your spine and gives you a sense of widening and spreading. So everything's falling back towards the ground and the whole body meets the earth and kind of spreads. So you can feel the back of the pelvis spreading, spreading across the hips, spreading across the shoulders, spreading across the base of the skull, and also the feet spreading, the feet widening and lengthening. So the exhalation is deepening our contact to the ground. It's strengthening that contact. So now we're going to engage with the exhalation. So the next time you experience the body breathing out, can you just give a little bit more attention to your feet? And you're going to press down through your feet as if you're just trying to push the floor away. And in that moment, spread your feet, widen your feet, and see if you can find in that moment the impetus for the pelvis to start to come off the floor. So try that a few times. I'd love for you to experience some lightness in the pelvis, so we don't need to tuck the buttock muscles under or push the pelvis up. Sorry, tucking the tail under or gripping the buttock muscles, giving some pressure through the feet, lengthening, widening, spreading your feet, and just getting that sense that you're pushing the ground away will help your pelvis feel lighter as it comes up. And explore that a few times, because you're going to arrive to a point where you may then start to push the pelvis up more. So then you can just bring the pelvis down. Really let it rest on the floor so you get a sense of its weight again. And then reconnect to your breath, to the exhalation, giving that little press through the feet. Little pressure down into the earth, spreading the feet, widening the feet, and the pelvis starts to float away from the ground. And then you can maybe meet that edge where if you continued, you may get into pushing the pelvis up. But can you just soften there and just relax your pelvis so the pelvis remains now off the floor, but it's relaxed, it's suspending, and you're supported fully by your feet on the ground, by the backs of your shoulders on the ground and your head on the ground. Good. Bringing the pelvis back down to rest again on the earth. Good. And continue to explore this. Every time we re-engage and we begin again, it's a different experience. So we need to let go of the stories that we might tell ourselves about our bodies, or any habitual patterns or ways of doing this kind of movement. To explore something new every moment, every breath. So as you meet the end of your range of movement here, once again just let go of the pelvis for a moment so it remains up, but you're certainly not gripping it. And come back to your feet on the floor, the head on the floor, your shoulders on the floor, and to the breath. And you could possibly here get a sense of your knees, this kind of energetic lengthening through your knees, as if your knees are travelling far, far, far away in front of you over your toes. So you get this nice opening here along the front of the body. Every time you exhale, rest into your feet, into the base of the skull, into the backs of the shoulders, the arms on the ground. Bringing the pelvis back down to the ground again whenever you feel you need to. Please listen to your body. So if you feel you need to rest before I give the cue to rest, then please do. And then engaging once again. Through the out-breath, you give a little bit of weight through your feet, that gentle pushing of the ground away. Keeping the buttock muscles soft as the pelvis comes up. Feel the spine starting to move in and up. So there's a lovely opening also here across the shoulders. The neck stays free, so the head can make small movements if it wanted to. That reaching away through your knees. And now how about also getting a feeling of your tailbone lengthening, as if your tailbone is lengthening towards your heels. And maybe you could explore your exhalation, travelling all the way to the tip of your tailbone, all the way through the soles of your feet and into the floor. If the pelvis comes up any higher, it's because it's invited up, a space opens for it to come up. Notice any tendency to push. Good. And again, the pelvis comes down, and when it touches the ground, it sinks, it spreads, it drops, the weight falls into the earth. Let your arms come up a little bit higher on the ground now, so they're just around about shoulder height. Not any higher, even just a little bit lower than shoulder height. And you're just going to explore dropping your knees. So now the knees are going to shift towards the right, and you'll find yourself rolling over your feet. Maybe the knees don't go all the way to the ground, that's absolutely fine. Exploring this a few times from side to side. So that you don't just collapse into a shape or a posture. The transitions from side to side become very interesting. You're exploring these movements as if you've never done them before. Staying connected to the ground, staying connected to your breathing. And the natural breath in and out through the nose, no force. And as you as things warm up here from side to side, maybe the knees start to head a little further to the ground. But what's a great indication here is actually the shoulder that you're leaving behind. So as the knees fall to the right, what's happening to the left shoulder? Can the left shoulder stay connected to the floor? Stay dropping? Keeping you anchored to the ground whilst you find this movement right to left in the lower body, which is bringing a nice soft rotation into the spine. And a lovely opening through the front of the body. All the way from the armpit to the knees. Maybe the head really wants to turn here. And just explore letting your head turn if it wants to, and just notice which way it would naturally go. So maybe your head naturally wants to turn away from the direction that the knees are going. Maybe your head wants to turn towards the direction that the knees are going. Try to let that happen naturally. Because if we know these positions very well, and we perform them regularly, we may think, in this position the head has to turn away from the knees. But actually, if you let your head just naturally turn, maybe it doesn't want to go in that direction. Or maybe it's different from one side to the other, so there's no right or wrong way. Good, one more time either side. Good, and then as you come back to center, and the weight reorganizes itself, redistributes itself across the whole body. And you can let one knee come towards you and then the other, and have just a gentle hug of the knees towards you. And as you rock from side to side, just re-engage the feet so the feet stay very alive and very open. Yeah, there's a certain curiosity in your feet. Yeah, as if those eyes in the soles of your feet are constantly open and looking around. Wonderful. Then let your knees slightly part to give you enough space to bring your arms in between your legs. And you're going to lift up your head here if you need to use your middle and index finger to make a hook there around your big toes. Yeah, and have the palms and the wrists facing in towards each other. And then just settling back down to the ground. Softening into this position so the legs are not opening up away from you at this stage. You're just simply resting back into yourself. And just notice what comes up here. Are you eager to race ahead to the leg stretching? Do you feel that you know this movement very well and you know what's about to happen? Do you like it? Do you not like it? See if you can let go of any stories that come up. So you arrive here completely innocent and very curious. Good. Take your attention to your big toe and see if you can just press your big toe into your fingers. Yeah, so we're not hanging off the big toe here like it's a hook that we can hang off, that your big toe is alive and it's kind of stepping up into your fingers. And notice how that changes everything, really. It's a completely different sensation through the whole body. Good, and then connecting back to your breath, connecting back to the exhalation, to that softening and spreading and that engagement with the earth. And in that moment, as the exhalation puts you down on the ground, can you slowly start to explore the legs opening up and start to explore them opening up in a kind of wide V. Just touch on the end of your range of movement and then fold back in again. So there's no push or pull here. Keep the big toe stepping into your fingers. As you explore, you discover the end of your range of movement there, and then you come back in. Notice what's happening to your breathing. And the contact of your body to the ground, that is going to tell you everything in this position. And maybe the legs don't open up very far, and that's fine, because I'd like you to stay connected to the ground. If you start pushing past your, the limit in your range of movement, possibly the body's going to start pulling off the ground, yeah? So the head, the neck might start to shorten, the head might start to kind of, shorten into the neck. The pelvis might start coming off the floor, and we start really disturbing our roots. The breath will also become very disturbed in that moment. So instead, stay really connected to the ground, listen to your pelvis, keep letting the weight of the pelvis drop, and your legs will unfold from there. And then in a certain point, if you feel comfortable, to wherever the legs have opened up to, meet that edge. So that edge is the kind of the natural limit where you arrive to, where if you proceeded any further, you may start pushing and pulling on the body. Just meet that place and come back to your breathing. Come back to your body resting on the earth. Come back to the movement of the big toe pressing up into your fingers. The weight of the legs dropping back into the hips. Your arms connecting back to the shoulders. And notice what arises within you as you meet this edge. how do you meet this edge? Can you meet this edge with a certain softness within yourself, with an open heart, with compassion for whatever comes up? And just keep connecting to your breathing. And allow the ground to receive your weight. Keep giving back to the floor. Every exhalation is an opportunity to return to the ground. Good. Folding in, folding in, folding in. Letting go of the feet. Your hands can come and rest on the knees, and then just enjoy the circling of the knees. So the knees are circling towards each other and then away from each other. Good. And in the opposite direction. Fantastic. Then you're going to roll over onto one side and use your upper hand to give a little bit of pressure on the ground so you can come up. And you're going to swivel your legs around. You're going to come now to rest on the underside of your body. So whichever side, I'm here with my left side to face the ground. And here I'm going to be resting onto the upper arm and to the elbow. And I've made a little bit of a kind of hammock for the base of my skull here. So really be sure, check in that you really are resting onto the underside of the body. This requires a little bit of balance because there may be the tendency to roll forward or the tendency to roll back. So it takes a moment to find this new connection to the earth and to rediscover how balance. And to return to the breath. This is a very interesting position for the armpit because the armpit here is really open to the ground. So you can you imagine, just like in the soles of your feet, you've got those eyes. Can you imagine you've got an eye in your armpit here that's open and turning towards the earth? And use your upper hand, in my case here it's the right hand, to support you if you need to, just with a light touch of the fingertips. Otherwise you can just let the hand rest on the upper side of the body. Woo! Be careful of your balance. So fingertips are really useful. Good, because now you're going to invite the top leg, in my case here the right leg, to come in towards you, so you can once again make that connection to the big toe. Now my underneath leg here is naturally softened. I'm certainly not locking the knee joint to make the leg rigid. There's a softening in the knee joint and the foot's very awake and alive, and I'm very connected through the outside edge of the foot. And then from the breath, exhaling into the earth, you can start to explore the leg opening up. And you may want to explore that a few times. Not so easy when you're talking. With the knee coming down, the knee folding, sorry, the leg coming down. And again, keep that little pressure of the big toe reaching up into your fingers. The head relaxed, the jaw relaxed, shoulders relaxed, belly soft. So the breath can really move through this shape. Good, one more time. The leg softens in. And again, pressing the big toe into your fingers, reaching up, explore the leg unfolding. At the same time as you're negotiating this balance with the ground, resting onto the side of your body, keeping a soft shoulder. Good, so you're going to start to think about this heel now dropping back towards the sit bone, so the leg starts to fold back in again, negotiating your balance. And as the heel drops towards the sit bone, change the position of your hand to take the top of your foot, and you're going to fold the leg behind you, keeping the top of the foot pressed into your hand and negotiating your balance with the ground. Breath by breath by breath, moment by moment. Good. Releasing that. And just before you change sides, roll onto the back of your body. And just observe and notice if you sense any difference from side to side. Any difference in how your body is connecting to the floor. Good. Now you can simply roll over now onto the right side of your body if you like. However, I'm going to change position this way so I can remain facing the camera. Remember to really find the underside here, the right side of the body. So negotiate that balance once again. It's easy to tilt forward, it's easy to tilt back. See if you can really find the outside edge of the hip, the outside edge of the legs, the outside edge of the foot. The armpit turning to face towards the ground. That eye in the armpit is open. The weight falling through your elbow and upper arm. Forming that cradle for the base of your skull in the hand. And it takes a few moments to settle there. Notice that it's always moving because your body is always in this relationship with the gravitational field. So it's always these tiny, tiny little oscillations that we stay present to. Good, and remember you can use the support here of your upper arm, your left arm, your hand, your fingertips, making contact to the ground. You could also try that hand coming away from the ground and finding the support through the breath. Good, so starting to fold in the left leg, the knee coming towards you, so you could possibly take the foot. Now if it's not possible to take the foot here, you can cradle the back of the leg to the calf and work with it this way. However, if you can take the big toe, you've got this lovely relationship between the big toe and your fingers, the big toe stepping up into your fingers, and then releasing up from there, exploring the leg opening. And as you do so, staying present to what you're leaving behind on the ground. Shoulder soft, head relaxed, neck relaxed, jaw relaxed. The leg folds in. Notice what's happening to your breathing. And as the leg opens up, you can think about extending the heel up as well as you're reaching that big toe up into your fingers. And keeping this shoulder very soft. Be careful for any excess tension creeping in on the leg that's still laying on the ground. You want to keep that leg dropping into the earth. Good. Now this time as the leg folds in, taking the top of the foot, the position changes, the foot coming back towards the buttocks, towards the sit bone, folding the leg in. Ooh, and then releasing the leg away from you. This time turning onto the front of the body, so laying face down. You can make a little pillow with your hands, so one hand comes above the other and just turn the head to rest on one side of the face. And just notice what you notice here. Between right and left side of the body, and also now as the front of the body meets the ground. Notice the interplay between the breath and the floor. You may get a sense of the belly expanding, pushing into the ground and softening back. So the areas of pressure change through the breath cycle. Get a sense of the weight of your legs, the tops of your feet. The weight of your elbows. And also the breath in the sides of the body and the breath in the back of the body. And take your attention down into your pelvis as you're observing the breath. And can you notice any movement in your pelvis as you're breathing? Maybe you observe that there's a rocking in the pelvis. Possibly noticing that on your inhalation your pelvis wants to tilt slightly forward, and on your exhalation your pelvis tilting backwards. So as if your pubic bone then kind of presses more strongly into the ground on your exhalation. So on the inhalation, let your pelvis tilt forward, and now we can go to meet that by encouraging the movement to be a bit more expressive. So as the inhalation comes in, you can now allow the pelvis to really tilt forward. So maybe the fronts of the hips and the groins come off the ground. And on the exhalation, as the pelvis draws under, the pubic bone pressing into the floor. So a lovely release there for the in-breath and out-breath. Now this is a movement that happens anyway when the breath deepens, on a much more subtle level, but we're just bringing it to life here. We can get a bit more expressive. Notice how that movement communicates all the way through your spine. So this movement is a natural response to breathing. Okay, let that settle. You're going to bring that movement now as you change the position of your arms, and you'll need to feel your way with the positioning of the arms. Yeah, you can play with all kinds of different positions, out at shoulder height, a bit further forward in front of you, more in line with the shoulders, or a little bit further out to the sides, where you find the optimum position of least effort. Okay, and then reconnect to this movement, so the breath coming in, the hips rising, the breath coming out, the hips dropping, the pubic bone dropping. So this movement is breath driven, following an out breath as the pubic bone drops, as the pelvis drops, as the legs drop. Explore your spine rising. And then coming down, in breath, out breath. In breath, out breath. The breath and the pelvis like a pump for the spine. So you want to get a sense that the spine rises really very lightly without any having to push up from the ground. Yeah, it's happening, changing positions of your arms to explore. There becomes this lovely communication between your body and the ground through the breath. Inhaling, exhaling, exploring the tilting of the pelvis, and allowing that to bring you into these cobra kind of movements, but very light through your spine. Exhale, the pubic drops, the legs drop, the legs are heavy, 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 the feet are heavy on the floor, and the spine rises. And your feet are awake, they're very awake and alive. Your feet are communicating to your spine. Again, exploring in different positions, because they will have a different impact on your spine. And really exploring this beautiful length that starts to come up through the front of the body, all the way up the front of the body. Tailbone dropping, pelvis dropping, so your spine can elongate. Good, one more time. And the spine rises so beautifully up, up, up through the crown of the head. Buttocks are soft, thighs are relaxed, feet are open, hands are open. Resting down. Placing the hands down by the side of the body, palms face up, and once again turning the head if you need to. Fantastic. So then bringing in the feet, like that movement we just explored when we were on the sides of the body. You can explore this just on one side if that feels more comfortable for you. Otherwise, taking both feet. And try to find this relationship here between your feet and your hands. So the tops of the feet are pressing into the hands. The hands are pressing back into the feet. So there's this meeting here between hands and feet. Yeah? They're yielding into each other. Hands pressing into the feet, feet pressing into the hands. Coming back to the breath, coming back to the ground, and to this same movement that follows the breath. Inhalation, the pelvis releases. Exhalation, it drops pubic bone into the floor. And you can start to rise up in towards the bow position. Settling down. So create the conditions for that position to occur. Inhalation, the pelvis rises. Exhale, it drops. Tail and crown releasing in two different directions. Front of the body lengthens. And the movement comes through the body, through the spine. Resting whenever you need to. Otherwise, following this beautiful action in the hips that follows the breath. It brings the pose to life, brings the pose into expression. Good, releasing the arms, releasing the legs, and once again settling down to rest. shaking out your hips if you need to. And so I'm just going to slip the arms out from underneath the head and find their placement here on the ground, resting down the face towards the earth. We're going to start to explore a movement now, picking up your left lower leg, and then you're going to take your toes back towards the ground behind you over on the right side. So that starts to bring this twist into the body. So explore that a few times. Keep exploring it on that side to start with. So the heel comes in towards the sit bone. You start to roll over onto the right hip, and the left toes seek the ground behind you, and they may touch the ground, they may not. That's absolutely fine. Don't force anything. Just see if you can find this lovely rolling action over the leg, over the hips, and this nice twist that comes into the spine, giving the organs a good massage and the organs a good wringing out, particularly the liver there on the right side. Good. And then you can change the position of your head. So you're now looking towards your right, and you can start to bring the right foot over behind you. And it might feel quite different on this side. Your hands may want to change position, so let that just happen really naturally. Good. Finding that rolling action and the movement up through the spine. That wringing out, that twist and massage for the digestive organs, for the liver, that length through the front of the body. Good. Changing side once again. Going to the opposite side. Now this time you can let your head turn towards the back leg. So your head is trying to see your foot. Doesn't matter if it doesn't see the foot. It's just the direction that you're looking. Doesn't matter if the foot doesn't touch the ground. Opening up the front of the body. Good. And then resting down once again. Actually pressing off your hands here so you can fold back into child pose. Resting down onto your forearms or onto the backs of your arms with the arms down by the side of the body. Settling onto the forehead, or you can place a pillow here underneath your head if you need some support for that. Again, looking for the breath in the sides of the body, the breath in the back of the body. And curling up through the spine, so you come back up to vertical. And making your way over onto sitting, so bring your pelvis to the ground. You're going to come to sit here in a wide V. So just explore that for a moment and get a feeling for that position, particularly around your hips, around your pelvis, how easy it is to let that weight sink into the floor, to let your legs drop into the floor, to find any lightness in the spine. If you find yourself all the way back here and the position is completely compromised, then a great thing to do is to bring some support, get your cushions, get your pillows, get your rolled up blankets, and bring that underneath your knees. So you start to raise up the knees a little bit. Yeah. Whatever you can find, that's really going to help you find some movement in the pelvis. Now this movement is exactly what we were just looking at on the ground when we were face down exploring the cobra and the bow. This tilting forward and rocking back. Here the spine is totally compromised when we're upright. So we need a degree of tilting forwards in the pelvis, not too much, just enough for the pubic bone to drop and anchor towards the floor so we can rise up. And the spine then has much more lightness, it's much more free in the upper body. Okay, so listen to what you need at the ground. Another option is to pop some support there underneath your hips. A book is even also fine there, yeah? So you can raise up the pelvis slightly. So please listen to your pelvis, please listen to your spine, because then once the spine can rise, there's space for the organs and there's space for the breath. Good. Place your fingertips lightly on the ground here. Bring your awareness back to your breathing. Back to the exhalation, softening the belly, helping you release the weight into the floor. Inviting these big surface muscles to soften. So you can get more of a feeling that your bones can drop here, yeah? Your bones can rest towards the floor. Good, and that the soles of your feet can be open and alive and curious. Those eyes that are in the soles of your feet are looking out into the space in front of you. When the feet are open and alive, it keeps the channel of communication all the way back into the centre and into the spine. It keeps that channel open. When the feet are dull, there's a certain sleepiness and heaviness to the body, okay? So keep the feet curious, widening, lengthening, opening. And these big surface muscles, soft, 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 soft. So remembering that now, as you start to explore folding forward, so you're bringing the spine now certain degrees forward, and really negotiate that for yourself with your body. I'm not able to see you here, so I'd like you to think more about going up through the crown of your head, so you're more about reaching upwards than about getting down, getting the head to the floor, yeah? Instead, think more about reaching upwards through the top of your head and downwards through your tail, so your spine is elongating in two directions. Yeah? And then, if there's the space to fold forwards, the folding forwards doesn't compromise your spine yet. The spine doesn't retract into this flexed curve that has nowhere to go, and there's absolutely no space for the breath, and the organs are all compressed here. So your tailbone reaching to the ground, the crown of your head reaching up, 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 up into the space. Yeah, see the difference? Here I can put my head on the floor, but there's nothing really happening here. I'm completely compressed and my breathing is compromised. However, if I keep seeking length, tailbone to crown, crown to the space in front, tailbone to the space beneath and the space behind, top of the head forward, base of the spine down, top of the head forward, base of the spine down. Feet, keep the feet open and the feet communicate to the base of the spine. Keep the hands open and the hands communicate to the top of the spine. If that all feels like too much to take in, then just please keep a sense of your spine, lengthening your head, continuing up, 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 up. Otherwise, if you're sensitive to this, then you can bring your hands alive, and the hands can communicate to the top of the spine, and your feet are alive, and your feet are communicating to the bottom of the spine, and see where that takes you. Hands are communicating to the top of the spine through the arms, feet are communicating to the base of the spine through the legs. Hands are communicating to the top of the spine through the arms, and the feet are communicating to the base of the spine through the legs. The spine stays long wherever it is, if it comes down towards the ground or if it is just simply folding forwards just a few degrees, it's the same. Good, bring yourself back upright. And now let's start to explore a little rotation coming towards the left leg. Okay, so from the spine, turning towards the left leg, then the fingertips can come to the ground. Length through the spine before you begin to fold forward. Length, length, length through the spine before you begin to fold forward, and let your hands naturally adjust. Remember, in this retracted position, if we're stuck here, think about length through your spine and everything opening up, and it will put you back naturally where you're in this lovely elongation. So there's no ambition to get the head or the body towards the leg. And notice what that brings up. Yeah, there might be this burning desire to get the body towards the leg, but at what cost? Yeah, if we're like this, I can't breathe. Yeah, energy, chi, prana, whatever you want to call it, cannot flow through the body. Everything is compromised. So open, open, open up the spine. Keep your feet awake and keep a sense of what's happening on this leg. Yeah, the leg that you're moving away from, that's dropping. So breath comes in and breath goes out. And you're responsive to this rhythm, breath coming in and breath going out. Breath coming in, lengthening through the top of your spine, breath going out, lengthening through the base of your spine. Good, then you can allow your left hand to reach towards your left leg, or to take the big toe, or to rest on the shin. And now press the ball of the foot into the hand and the hand into the ball of the foot, so you create a chain of feedback here, so that you can begin to turn away to open the body up to face front. And now you've got a lovely length in the sides of the body. And from there, the right arm can open up. Yeah, so I'm not just hanging off this foot, or there's nothing really happening here at the leg. You're using that connection to give you lift. And there's space in the spine, and there's space around the organs, and there's space for the breath. Beautiful. Coming back to centre. Just checking in and noticing the difference from side to side. As you find this turning towards the right, from around the area of the navel, just beneath the navel. It's rotating towards the right. And then the fingertips can lightly come to the ground. And as you shift your spine slightly forwards, so you change the inclination of the spine in its relationship to gravity, watch what's happening to this leg. If the big muscles want to switch on and start gripping, soft, 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 soft. This leg keeps dropping. The feet stay awake and the head is reaching up. It's breath by breath, moment by moment. resisting any temptation to get the head to the leg. Change that mantra, change that pattern, and instead invite your spine to lengthen and just observe how happy your spine is, how relieved your spine is to lengthen. It doesn't matter how far you go down. Because now there's space around the vertebra, there's space around the organs, there's space for the breath. And then you'll discover, if you stay attentive to the length of the spine, you'll quickly discover how much room there is to travel forwards. And that changes moment by moment. And it will be different from one side to the other. And remember that your feet communicate to the base of your spine and your hands communicate to the top of your spine. Good. And at some point your right hand can find the right foot, either with the hand over to the ball of the foot or taking the big toe or resting on the shin. Wherever you rest the hand, there's an engagement. So here the ball of the foot is pressing into the hand's meeting the ball of the foot. That gives me feedback all the way through my arm to my spine and all the way through my legs to my spine. And that helps me find the rotation of the torso to the front. And then from there the upper arm unfolds like a wing. And the breath comes out, in, and it comes into the sides of the body and into the back of the body. And the breath goes out and puts me down on the ground through the hips and through the base of the spine. The breath comes in, and the breath goes out and puts me down on the ground, through the hips, through the legs, through the base of the spine. Good. Coming up and taking the relief for the legs, dropping back onto the hands. So you can undo the legs. First of all, bring them in, sole to sole. So you're resting on the outside edge of the foot. And just have a little rock there from side to side. You can creep your sit bones in, explore that, creeping your sit bones in towards your heels and then creeping them back. Creeping them in and creeping them back. Good. And then extending the legs away from you and giving them a really good shake out. And then a little flop from side to side. So the hip joints rolling in, rolling out. Great. So gradually bring yourself up to standing. Taking your feet behind you, coming up onto your knees. Taking a step forward and coming up. Good, so as you come to standing now, just observing how the weight is falling through your feet, how you've returned to the standing position after all of the work that we've done on the ground. How you're communicating to the earth through your legs, through the feet and down. And equally how the spine is communicating upwards through the top of your head, through the crown of your head. The tailbone is reaching towards the floor and the top of your head is reaching towards the sky. And just be very careful in standing to not push the knees back, to lock the knee joint back, because that's really going to interrupt our communication to the floor. So keep a degree of softness in your knees. going to step that stance wide, so opening that up. Keep the feet facing forwards. And in this position, it's a really good idea to keep connected to the outside edge of your feet, okay? Because it can be very easy here to roll inwards. So also keep a certain level of awareness of the space between your legs, okay? So you're keeping a sense of this inner channel and the space between your legs, and the little toe side of the foot, the outside edge of the foot contacting the ground, and this outside line of your leg. Okay, so you've got the inside channel and the outside channel. Outside edge of the foot, big toe. Good. Let your arms for now come and rest, hands on the sacrum. So the hands are resting behind you. And again, keep that slight softness in your knees. So we're not pushing the knees back, because that's going to impact the spine and it blocks our communication to the ground. Good, so with that slight softness in the floor, you can really yield now and meet the ground and start to discover shifting the spine out of its vertical position. And as you start to fold forwards, everything that we've just been talking about down on the ground is still relevant here. The spine is elongating forward through the crown of your head, forward through the crown of your head, into the space in front of you, and also back into the space behind you through the tailbone. Yeah, that doesn't mean pushing the pelvis back. It just means that you have a sense of reaching through your tail and reaching through the crown of your head. So the spine stays elongating in two directions, just as it did when you were standing. Good. Soften your knees and come up. And explore this in your own timing. And I'm going to turn side on here so you can just get a sense of what I was talking about there by pushing your pelvis back. Okay, so now can you see that my pelvis has gone back beyond my heels? I want to keep the pelvis forward over the heels with a feeling of the tail reaching back, not the pelvis pushing back. The tail stays grounded over the feet. So the pelvis stays grounded over the feet as the tail elongates, as the crown of the head elongates. So my intention here is forward before anything happens with coming down. My intention is always forward through the spine and back through the tail before anything happens with coming down. And as soon as I feel myself retracting in the spine and closing down space, find length. And it may bring you a little bit further up, but that's okay, because now we have space to breathe. In-breath into the sides of the body, into the back of the body, keep the pelvis over the feet. Find the balls of your feet, find your heels, find length in your spine. Breath into the sides of the body, into the back of the body. Find length, length, length through your spine, tail reaching back, head reaching forwards through the crown before you fold. So the spine is always seeking length and space to breathe. You come up, listen to your body, please come up whenever you want to. And really honour where your body is at right now, today. There's absolutely no perfect pose. There's no perfect shape. There's no this is what it should look like, that's what it shouldn't look like. There is only what it feels like, how you're communicating to the floor, can you breathe, Does it feel good? Does it feel open? Does it feel spacious? Do you feel supported? Take out the push and pull. Take out the effort. And we started there. Keep exploring. Come in and out of this as you feel comfortable. We started there with the hands resting on the sacrum, just so that we could really get into what was happening with the spine. But then as I was working, if you were watching, you may have noticed that at some point my hands naturally released because they wanted to find the ground. So let your hands and your arms change position as feels comfortable. And they may start changing their distance, they may come closer to the legs, they may move further away from the legs, because all of those different positions affect the spine in a different way. But the principles remain the same. Feet are open, spine is long, hands are open, the body has space for the breath. And you come up and out of it whenever you feel ready. Bring the legs in, just give them a bit of a shake out. When you feel complete with that exploration, shake out your feet. And you're going to come back to that wide position. Now these wide stride positions, sitting and standing, are excellent for stimulating the liver and the gallbladder meridian channels, which run up through the inside and down through the outside of the legs. Now we're going to take that a little bit further. So you're going to bring the spine through this forward folding, keeping elongation. Now if you need to, please soften your knees, yeah? There's absolutely no benefit to have the knees opening if it pulls you back into your spine retracting. So soften your knees, you'll notice your pelvis changes its position immediately and the spine lengthens. Another tip there, if you want some support at the ground, this is all I have available, but you could use a block or a book, because we're going to bring the left hand to the centre, to the ground in the centre. So if you need some support there, yeah, you have as much height, boom, 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 build it up as you need so you can stay true to this lengthening of your spine. Otherwise, if you feel comfortable bringing the hand or the fingertips to the floor, that kind of triangular point between the feet, and then your right hand can come to rest on the sacrum. Connecting back to the breath and then discovering a rotation towards the right leg. Head stays in line with the spine. Head is lengthening forwards. And explore that a few times. Body comes back to face the ground. Turns to face towards the right leg, head stays free. And as you explore that, noticing what's happening with the left hip, because as you turn, you may notice that hip wants to follow you. Yeah? Can you keep this hip moving back and staying exactly where it was in position so the hip bone stays facing the floor? Yeah, so then the rotation comes higher up into the thoracic spine. Good, changing positions. So now the right hand drops, left hand comes onto the sacrum. Following the breath, finding that rotation towards the left leg, noticing what's happening with the right hip, and what's happening with the head. Keep the head and the jaw free. Keep the elbow soft also here in that front hand, in the front arm, sorry, because it's very easy to push that elbow into a locked position, which is a very similar action to locking the knees. And your pelvis remains over the feet. So also resisting any tendency to push back through the pelvis. Keep the pelvis coming forward, find the balls of your feet, find the heels. Yeah, feet communicating to the hips, to the spine. One more time each side. So once again turning right. It's not a very big rotation because your hips are staying level to the ground. And then you can explore what might happen if that arm was to unfold from the spine, without your arm pulling the spine round, okay? The spine has already rotated, so the arm is a continuation of that expression. Placing the right hand on the ground, left hand on the sacrum. Seeing what's happening with the pelvis and the hips. As the spine turns, elbows soft, arm opening up. And it might feel different on this side. Good, coming back, softening the knees so you can really rest down to the earth. So you're in kind of like a deep squat. Shift your hips from side to side, circle your hips, sway into the sides of the body, let that come all the way up into your head. Sinking your weight now a little bit deeper into the left hip as the right leg opens up, into the right hip as the left leg opens up. Good, center, bend your knees, slowly curling up through your spine. Tailbone drops towards your heels as you roll up, as you roll up, as you roll up. And then your feet can heel toe back in towards neutral standing. And then again, as you come back to our neutral standing position, just noticing what you notice. How the weight's resting into the ground now, how you're meeting the ground. Attentive to not locking the knees. A degree of softness in your knees. Soft in the hands, soft in the fingers. Relaxed in the jaw. Reaching up through the top of your head. So you're going to gradually bring yourself back down to the floor. So just be mindful how you make that transition back down to the ground. Back down to the position that we started in. And then as you lay your spine back to the floor, knees bent, feet standing into the ground to start with, just check in and notice how you return to this place after the practice that we've just explored together. Hands can either be on the belly or this time down by the side of you. Palms face up. Gradually letting the weight settle down, noticing how you return to the earth. Noticing how you feel. And you may close your practice. And then to close your practice this morning, you can either remain resting here, or you can extend one leg away from you and then the other. So you open up the legs, open up the back of the knees. You can pop some bolsters or a cushion, blankets rolled up underneath your knees if you want to. You can bring a blanket if you feel a little bit chilly, if you want to have socks on or a jumper. It can take much longer to rest than this recording. Or if you just want to have a short rest, then ensuring you give yourself this time to really let the practice consolidate, to really land in the body. Really allowing yourself that time before moving on into the rest of your day. Throughout the practice, you've created the conditions for rest. Allowing yourself to receive rest. The sense of a smile behind your eyes. Smile through the base of your skull. Smile through the whole region of the heart. Smile across the hips from the pubic bone to the hip bones. The whole body smiling. The whole body smiling.